But thinking about it more, although everything I just said is true, actually, they're right. He's not part of the culture. What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA, and today we are here to talk about one of the most polarizing artists in the entire rock and metal scene of the past couple years, and that is Machine Gun Kelly, aka MGK. Because it's actually a pretty interesting case study. On the one hand, he's selling millions and millions of albums and has arguably done more to put rock in the mainstream than any other artist of his generation. But on the other hand, there's probably no artist at the moment that rock fans hate more than him. So what's the deal? Why exactly does everybody hate MGK, and is it justified? Do they have a point, or are they just clueless haters? And what can we learn from all of this? Those are the questions that I will answer in this video. But first, in case you haven't seen it, I'm streaming twice a week on Twitch. So if you want to hang out with some cool people and listen to new music, follow me on Twitch at the link in the description of this video, and I'll see you there. And also, I want to thank Albert for sponsoring this video. Because let's be real, traditional banks have problems. For one, they charge crazy overdrafts, like sometimes $35 or even more, plus all kinds of random fees like maintenance fees on your checking or savings account, which is why I'm stoked to tell you about Albert, because Albert is completely different from any bank account you've used. First of all, it's free to sign up and super easy to use, and Albert helps you save automatically by looking at your income and your expenses and automatically moving money into your savings account, even if it's just a few dollars at a time. It all adds up, every bit helps. And unlike traditional banks, there are no maintenance fees or minimum balance requirements. Albert also takes the stress and headaches out of managing your finances with their team of financial experts that they call geniuses that will look at your situation and help you make a plan and answer any questions if you get stuck. So if you want to check out Albert and support the channel in the process, just click the link in the description of this video or go to albert.com/rock to download the Albert app today. That is albert.com/rock. And they have an amazing offer running for a limited time only. When you open a checking account and connect a qualifying direct deposit, you'll get $150. All right, so in order to explain the hate for MGK, first, we've got to start at the beginning. MGK started making music around 2007, but his career really kicked off in 2010 with the release of his mixtape called 100 Words and Running, which came out when he was about 20. And I'm not into this kind of like Midwest chopper rap at all, so this isn't something that I personally would ever choose to listen to. To me personally, it's pretty corny, but at the same time, if I'm being objective, honestly, it's very well done for what it is, especially for him being so young and being really relatively new to music.
Bitch, please don't use that tongue, but don't use that wrong. And tell your boyfriend who you used it on. She calling me daddy and that boy Lil John. So if we got a problem, then let's get crunk.
And I actually lived in Columbus when this came out, and I remember him getting quite a bit of buzz locally back then, like his song Cleveland being played at Cavs games and stuff. And although, like I said, I wasn't really a fan, I did get it, because I also lived in Cleveland for a few years in the 90s, and I saw the video for this song, and I was just instantly like, yep, this guy is like the essence of Cleveland distilled into one human being. Like this skinny white guy in a wife beater with his hat turned backwards at a 45-degree angle, getting in your face saying, "Don't test my gangster." Just really reminded me of every kid like this that I ran into at the West 117th Rapid Station who asked me for a cigarette.
I go hard, go in, get done. But you don't want to test my G, because I got 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 soldiers in EST. Bow, bow.
And because of that, I really never expected him to be more than just like a regional rapper, because it was just like so Midwest. But I was obviously very wrong. His debut album, Lace Up, went to number 4 on Billboard. It went gold shortly after that, and he was on his way to being like a legit mainstream star, doing songs that people like Waka Flocka, Young Jeezy, Chief Keef. And, you know, to be honest, like I said, I thought his music was pretty bad, but you can't argue with his success. He was doing it. And to make a long story short, he blew up from there, putting out 4 full-length albums between 2012 and 2019. He had a song with Camila Cabello that went to number 4 on Billboard. His star kept rising, but really in the context of rap. So although he did get a little bit of attention from a few outlets like Alternative Press, which is probably just because they're also from Cleveland, for the most part, the rock media really just completely ignored him until 2020, when he released his pop punk album Tickets to My Downfall, and that is when the MGK hate fest really kicked off. So with that said, let's talk about exactly what happened, exactly why rock fans hate him, point by point, and ask the question, is it justified? So the first one you'll hear people say is pretty obvious and straightforward. They'll say, his music sucks, that is why I hate MGK. That Tickets to My Downfall is derivative and uninspired, that it's just a rehash of stuff that Blink-182 did 20 years ago. And that's not wrong. I mean, it is clearly not the most original thing in the world. It is very much that, just kind of redoing what Blink did back then. And I personally just don't think his voice sounds great for this style. It's a little too like deep and rough to me. Just kind of sounds out of place. But I certainly wouldn't say that his music sucks, and beyond that, I don't think it's that simple. Because a lot of the people saying this are actually huge fans of Blink-182 and all the other bands that he's drawing from, as well as newer artists like Kenny Hoopla, who are also doing something very similar to him. So it kind of doesn't really add up. Like, if he is a clone of Blink, and you like Blink, and you like the other Blink clones, then why don't you like his music? I think it's the same thing as what you usually see with a lot of these most hated artists. I think that the answer is that it's not really about his music, it is about him as a person, or who they believe him to be. Like, if a different artist put out the exact same album, if somebody else put out Tickets to My Downfall that wasn't MGK, I think the reception would have been very, very different. And so with that said, the next question is, what exactly is it that people hate so much about him? Well, the main thing that you hear is people saying that he was a failed rapper who switched genres after Eminem destroyed him, so he's a poser and he sucks and I hate him. And for anyone who's not familiar with the whole story here, basically, to recap it quickly, Eminem originally dissed MGK in his song Not Alike.
And I'm talking to you, but you already know who the fuck you are, Kelly. I don't use sublims, and sure as fuck don't sneak this, but keep commenting on my daughter, Haley.
Because MGK made a very, very dumb tweet years ago about Eminem's daughter, who was 16 at the time, and MGK said that she was, in his words, hot as fuck. And I gotta say, I'm not a father, but if I was, I'd be pretty pissed off about that too. But MGK being MGK, he came back with his own diss track in response to that called Rap Devil, where he called Eminem old and said that his beard is weird.
Hey, somebody grab him some clippers. His fucking beard is weird. Tough talk from a rapper paying millions for security a year.
And then Eminem came back again with his own diss track dedicated solely to MGK called Kill Shot.
Kelly, they'll be putting your name next to John, next to Benzino. Die, motherfucker, like the last motherfucker saying Haley in vain. Haley.
Which was the end of the beef, and although pretty much everyone agreed that MGK did better than anybody expected, Eminem was very clearly the winner. And so that was the basis of the narrative, that Eminem beat him so badly in this beef that MGK got ran out of rap and had to change genres. And although I agree that what MGK said about Eminem's daughter was really fucking uncool and gross, and Eminem did most certainly win this beef, I don't think that this narrative quite holds up, and here's why. For one, this beef was in 2018, and in 2019 he put out an album called Hotel Diablo, which was all rap and went to number 5 on Billboard. And it wasn't until 2020 that he went pop punk. So if he supposedly turned away from rap because of the whole Eminem thing, the timing just doesn't really make sense. And like I said, it went to number 5, so he was hardly a failed rapper. He was actually a very successful one. The other thing to note here is that although he was a rapper, he did really kind of always have one foot in rock. He played Warped Tour in 2012, and he did a song with Sleeping with Sirens in 2013 because, as he will tell you, his roots are kind of in rock. Before he put out any kind of rap stuff, he actually got into music by playing guitar in a band as a teenager. Or as he put it, I grew up going to Warped Tour and other shit as a super heavy punker and skating and doing all that troubled youth white boy shit. Now, I'm guessing that super heavy punker to him probably means Sum 41 and like 3 Days Grace or something, not Discharge and the Casualties. So I'm not here to defend MGK's punk credentials, but it does seem pretty clear that he made a pop punk album because that's just genuinely what he wanted to do, not because Eminem supposedly destroyed his rap career. Because number 1, Eminem didn't destroy it. Number 2, I'm pretty sure that MGK is like 100,000% convinced that he actually won that battle, and his fans definitely think he won it. So I think really all that beef did was make MGK more relevant than ever simply by getting acknowledged to that level by a legend like Eminem. So I don't think that really hurt him at all, but what probably did hurt him, most certainly with rock audiences at least, was his other beef with Corey Taylor. To make a long story short, the beginning of all this is that Corey did an interview where he said,
I hate all new rock for the most part. I think the artists who failed in one genre and decided to go rock, and I think he knows who he is.
Obviously, everyone knew he was referring to MGK. So then a couple months later, MGK talked shit on Slipknot from on stage at Riot Fest, which they were both playing kind of at the same time.
Hey, you want to know what I'm really happy that I'm not doing? Being 50 years old, wearing a fucking weird mask on a fucking stage, talking shit.
Which, as you would expect, rock fans were not super happy about. I mean, you don't just talk shit about Slipknot, right? I mean, you can see how they reacted to his set at the Louder Than Life festival shortly after the Riot Fest thing.
Fuck yeah, dude, everyone fucking get on the fucking shoulders of some strong, sweaty guy and fucking crowd surf on up here. This next song goes like this, because clearly people don't know.
And I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but I think when it comes to beef, or just in general, I think he just really doesn't understand that rock works differently than rap. I'm not saying one is better or worse than the other, they're just very different, in particular when it comes to stuff like this. Rap has always had a competition of culture and battling, like battles and beef have really been part of it since the very beginning, and rock really just isn't like that. Like, beef is not a part of the culture, certainly not when it comes to taking on legends like Slipknot. So while on the one hand, the average rap fan probably doesn't really give a shit about him saying whatever he said about Eminem, rock fans definitely do, especially when it's someone like MGK, who they already kind of disliked. Another thing that people bring up fairly often, and rightfully so, is that he's said a lot of kind of weird, creepy stuff over the years. For example,
black girls give the best head. Most of y'all say, I don't do that unless you're my man. You know what I'm saying? Like, whereas you just need to show your skills, because black girls give the best head 100%.
And
I don't care who my first celebrity crush was, because right now it's Kendall Jenner. I'm not waiting until she's 18. I'll go now.
He's also made quite a few creepy tweets, which I'm not going to read out loud because I don't want someone to like take this recording out of context, but you can look him up. Plus what he said about Eminem's daughter, like, it just all adds up. It's not a good look. And I'm not normally the type of person to take something that people said or tweeted years ago and hold it against them. Not into cancel culture and all that sort of stuff. But the thing is here is that he's really never tried to walk it back or apologize or like distance himself from it in any way. If anything, he's done the opposite of that. And to me, all he would really need to say is like, yeah, I said some dumb shit years ago. It wasn't cool. I was just young, trying to be edgy and shock people. I apologize. I regret saying all that. My bad. That's all he would need to say, and I think that that would go a long way. But he has had every opportunity to do that, and he doesn't. So understandably, people continue to hold that against him. I mean, if he doesn't take it back, then I guess he still stands by it, right? And if that is the reason why someone dislikes MGK, then I would say, you know what? Fair enough. I don't fault them for that. But with that being said, I don't think that's the majority of people, simply because I think most people just aren't aware of that stuff. Like, they don't follow him that closely. I think it's much more simple than that. Like, really, just to put it in the plainest terms possible, I think people hate his music because even though it is rock, and as I've said, he's been listening to and playing rock for, the majority of his life, he's really not part of the culture. And let me explain what I mean by that. The rock scene, just like every other genre, is a subculture, and every subculture is defined by a set of values and norms. Values are kind of like the abstract beliefs about what is right or wrong according to the subculture, and norms are kind of like the standards for behavior, like what you should and shouldn't do, and the two things are related. Values are what we believe, and norms are the way that you're supposed to act with those values in mind. And although rap and rock are mixing more than ever sonically, I think the values and norms of the subcultures are still very, very different, and that is what the MGK hate is really all about. The two subcultures really just have fundamentally different beliefs about values and norms. And to put a finer point on that, I understand it's not quite this simple, but at least in terms of the mainstream stuff that you hear on the radio, for the most part, rap values status above all else. Like being the top dog, the alpha male or female. And this is not a new thing. This has been true since pretty much the beginning of the genre. This is why in rap it's considered cool to flex with your cars and wearing expensive shit, right? Like if you have a bunch of chains or a $1,200 Balenciaga sweater, that means that you are high status because you're so successful that you can afford to waste money on dumb shit that has no actual utility. And another facet of that is that it's also considered cool to talk shit and beef with other artists as long as you win. That is the important part. Like, if you win the beef, you're gonna get everyone's respect, even if you're a complete asshole in the process. For example, 50 Cent's legendary destruction of Ja Rule, where if we're being honest, he was kind of an asshole about it, but he gets respect because he won. And by the same token, if you lose, you're a clown, even if you were the better person, because at the end of the day, what matters more than anything else is status, being the top dog. Whereas in rock, at least within the context of this video, I think the core value is something more along the lines of respecting tradition. Like, a rock band is supposed to use acoustic drums, not 808s. And you're supposed to play everything live, not use backing tracks or auto-tune or anything like that, because that's just not how it's done. And you wear black jeans and t-shirts, not Balenciaga sweaters and chains, because, you know, that's just not how we do things around here in the rock world. So when MGK comes along and says stuff like rock bands are lame for wearing comfortable shoes on stage, and they should dress differently to be more entertaining, that pisses people off, because that really just flies in the face of rock culture, because that's not respecting tradition. Like, who the fuck is this guy to come along and tell us how to dress? And when he beefs with Corey Taylor, that's also kind of frowned on, because he's not respecting his elders, even though really, actually, Corey kind of started it. It doesn't matter, because he's the, young gun, and he should respect those who came before him. So when I was writing this video, I actually changed my mind a little bit on this whole thing. I used to think that when people said he wasn't part of the culture, I was like, what are you talking about? He played Warped Tour, he did songs with Sleeping with Sirens. To this day, he still covers Operation Ivy. He's selling millions of copies of his rock album. Like, how is he not part of the culture? But thinking about it more, although everything I just said is true, actually, they're right. He's not part of the culture. Because at the end of the day, it's really not about the music. It's about the values and norms. I could sort of flip that on its head and use myself as an example. Like, I've been listening to rap for over 30 years now, and I probably know more about the history and stuff than most rap fans, and probably even a lot of newer rappers. But am I part of hip hop culture? No, I'm not. I'm just a guy who listens to a lot of rap, right? These are two different things. So what does all that mean? Well, I would say that there are two main takeaways. The first one is that, at least when it comes to marketing an artist, it's really only partly about their music. Yes, the music obviously matters, of course, it always does, but what matters just as much, and honestly probably even more than the music, is that they align with the values and norms of their audience. Audiences want to be a fan of artists who they believe are like them. And for now, at least, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, it'll be a different story. I don't know. But at least as of now, the way that he carries himself is much more like a rapper than it is a rock artist. And until that changes, I think the current generation of rock fans are really just never gonna like him, no matter what his music sounds like or how good it is. And the reason for that, again, is because of the misalignment of values and norms between him and the larger rock culture. And personally, I find his sort of self-centered, narcissistic, loudmouth kind of persona to be annoying and exhausting. As far as his music goes, I think it's okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I'm sort of indifferent to it either way. And I definitely don't think he's someone that I would get along with well on a personal level. So just to be clear, I'm really not a fan of MGK in general, like musically or as a person, but I still stand by what I said before. At the end of the day, his success is good for the genre because it's making rock relevant in the mainstream in a way that it really just hadn't been for years. No, he's not really part of rock culture, but that doesn't matter to like some 13-year-old who gets his album and loves it, does a little bit of research, and then goes on to discover people like Lil Lotus or Neck Deep or the Descendants or whoever else, wherever the rabbit hole leads them. We all had that kind of gateway artist, and I think MGK is going to be that for a lot of kids. And ultimately, I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't really care one way or the other how successful he is or isn't in the future, but I do find it fascinating as a case study in the uncomfortable truth that a lot of people don't want to admit is that when it comes to marketing an artist, what's more important than the music is oftentimes the values, norms, and lifestyle. All right, my friends, as always, let me know what you think in the comments of this video. Check me out on Twitch, join my Discord if you haven't, and as always, I would like to thank everyone who supports me on Patreon, especially those of you who support at the true cult level or above. Patrons get all my podcasts a week early. I do some Q&As, I do giveaways. There's a way to have me review your music or artwork or anything else you want to get my eyes or ears on. Just join at the $10 and up level. Drop it in the comments when I do a call for submissions every month. Then I will review them live on Twitch Twitch and post them on Patreon for everyone to see. So if that sounds cool to you, hit the link in the description of this video, and I will see you next time.